Live. My name is Anthony.
I'm Gabby, trying not to burn myself with coffee. Wow, so hot.
And this is VO Journey Academy Live.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. It
Hi.
is the 17th, a Thursday.
A
That is
Thursday.
crazy day, cray
Right?
day. Real quick, before we get into all that, tonight is a super exciting night for VO Journey Academy because
Dun, dun,
we have
dun.
got Bonnie Williams kicking off our first ever character voiceover class,
Be so good.
right? Which is open to everybody who's in the academy. So, you do not want to miss this. It's wonderful. I mean, you'll be here for the semester, of course, and doing more, but this is the first one. So, really excited. Check us out. This is the time to join. So, get over there and check us out.
Yeah.
If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Hit that bell notification so you know when we are live. Also,
Yeah.
comment in the chat. Tell us what's going on, what questions you might have.
Tell us about your feelings. Maybe not.
How do you feel today? Yes. All right, Gabby, what are we jabbing about today?
So we left off yesterday with a great bunch of questions about voiceover technique. We've
Mm.
dubbed this technique week, and Alex was asking about advice for pacing and how to slow down and right. So you had given him your answer, and I was a major tease and said, I'll tell you tomorrow. So okay, here are my thoughts on pacing and how to slow yourself down inside of a read and keep a really nice pace. So I'm going to piggyback on what you said about like the metronome and just say music. Find yourself
Oh, I love
pieces
this.
of music, some that are of a faster tempo, some that are of a slower tempo, right? And read to the music because the tempo is going to help to dictate what is happening and how you read. You're not going to speed through something if you've got like a slow melodic violin behind you.
Mm,
Now,
I love that.
one of my uh so other things that you can do. Punctuation. Punctuation inside of any written work is critical, right? It's there for so many reasons. Now, in voiceover, this is kind of a controversial thing because there's two schools of camp here, right? And on one hand, there is, especially in the commercial world, there's the crowd that goes, throw the punctuation away, throw it out, pretend it's not even there, don't even look at it. The English major in me finds like that makes my skin crawl because I'm like, a writer is trying to convey certain things. And if you throw out the punctuation, you have destroyed some of those meanings potentially. Now, look, if we're talking about a 15-second commercial to sell toothpaste, I get it. Throw the punctuation out. Don't worry about it. It's not a great paraphrase. You're
Right.
fine. But if you're dealing with something long form, if you're just certainly if you're dealing with a book, right, use the punctuation accordingly. And so the way I've always explained this is you have periods. These are the ones you're looking out for. You've got periods, commas, exclamation points, question marks, and ellipses, the three dots, right? Dot, dot, dot. Basically, a comma, a period, it's a single beat of pause. Give yourself that one little boom, and then keep going. An exclamation point, a question mark, is two beats of pause. And then finally, your ellipses is three beats. And use that to kind of pace yourself because then you're applying the appropriate amount of space to equal the punctuation's proposed meaning. So that's another one I like to employ. And then,
Mm.
and the last is converting your script into a question and answer session. And this is a lengthier technique and it's hard to just, it's something difficult to illustrate just in this, but the gist of it is see your script as the answers to a two-sided conversation. Another person is asking you questions, you are answering. So if you stop in between each phrase, each sentence to really ponder, hey, what did this person just ask me? You're going to slow yourself down and have a more appropriately conversational response to them. And so those are my
Mm.
pacing methods.
Oh,
Um,
very
yeah,
nice.
yeah. Now, Michael Tuts VO, he also had a question yesterday, and his was about tone. Now, this
Mm.
is interesting, and I do want to explore this, and I definitely want your take on this, Anthony, because
Hmm.
it is a fascinating subject. He said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, I'm having trouble maintaining tone, and I want to know what you do to keep your tone up or keep it consistent and to keep from it slipping or dropping. So,
Yeah,
should we first sort of define what tone is? Because I think people mean different things sometimes when they say tone.
oh, I completely agree. And it can be, I guess, just like any other word we use, you can attach multiple things to it. So in my mind, or at least what I think he's talking about, right? And maybe, and you can, maybe I'm off too. Maybe you can feel, we will have a conversation about it. But
Michael might have to chime
in
in.
this right, in this particular maybe context, talking about the general, whether it's a character or the overall voice style of the
Mhm,
piece,
mhm.
right? I mean, and I think I've started to like to use that word style a little bit
Yes,
more. Do you know what I mean?
I
As opposed to
prefer that.
tone,
Mm.
because you could even start to say the tone is how, just maybe energetic your misery is. You know what I mean? Like it starts to, you could start to take on all of these different meanings,
Well,
right?
yeah. I mean, tone historically, and I think traditionally for most people, right, it means the tone of your voice. Like it literally, they're not thinking of it sonically or musically. People see
Hmm.
it as don't take that tone with me. It's
Right,
emotional.
right,
And so sometimes when people use tone to mean the overall read, it's like you said, it's style more so. So
exactly.
yes, I agree. And I do think that's what Michael's talking about.
Right.
So yeah, what do you do?
So
I mean,
I think first off, I'd say my first piece of advice for everybody too is give yourself a break, because this is an especially, so if we're talking about a long piece, this is something that over time we're all going to have to work on. You're not going to just fire out of the gate and be able to do this. A perfect example of this, that you can watch anywhere, even with famous screen actors, is accents. A lot of them will have, for example, some very famous people with Australian accents who try to do American accents, and then you'll see throughout the movie goes on, they start to slip, it starts to change, things, they start to just forget, right? Or they're just working on it, and they're so focused on
Mhm.
their craft, their regular style comes out.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a really, like, 20,000 foot view of, it is difficult for all of us. It is difficult for all of us. So first off, that's give
I
yourself a.
love I love to yell at the screen at like a movie, or it's like sometimes Nicole Kidman, I'll be like, "Nicole, your Australian showing, tuck it back in," because she'll slip.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Second thing is, depending on how in depth your style is, right? This is something that you have to practice at. And also, I like to utilize recordings, reference recordings that I make. So if
Mm.
I have a specific style, tone that I'm going for example, with a particular character, right? I remember this book I did where there was at least 35 characters throughout the book, and in the one scene there was five of them in a car,
Oh,
and
no.
all of them were it was
That's
dialogue
my
between, like, all of
hell.
them. They were all speaking back and forth different times, right? And no in between, like, and the particular author didn't write and so said and so said. They left all that out. So it literally was your job as a narrator in that instance to differentiate them by your performance. And so it felt at times early on, like, they just, gosh, everybody's just sounding the same. How do you keep that style? So what I did
Mm.
was I said, okay, I create a character, I create a reference file, right? Name it that character's name. So in chapter 36, when I have to go back and it's now the chapter, John's revenge on Anthony,
Oh
right?
my
Uh,
God.
I know a John's voice, how John's voice sounded, because I could listen to that reference file,
How
and
long does it take you to build the references? Like how
so okay, so that's right. That's a whole nother topic of how do you how are you creating the character? How does that come about? For me, I'm like a it rolls right off of me. I improv that puppy, and if I like it, I lay it down and move on. There are some occasions, if it's something like if it's an older book that I'm passionate about,
Mm,
like very passionate about, I will spend way more time researching on, how it's been done in the past, how I feel about it. But that's like passion projects for me.
okay.
The projects where we got to move along, right?
Mm,
I'm going to move quicker on it. Now, I have utilized visual aids. So if I'm supposed to be playing an old rugged man, I will go onto YouTube and type in old rugged man. I'm not YouTube, excuse me, Google,
I know
and I'm
what you
gonna go
mean.
to the images, and I'll create a vision board, and I'll actually put the characters that that the
Mhm.
descriptions give me on a visual kind of board online, and I will then look at them and I build my character off of how I envision them speaking.
Okay.
All right. And that
Wow.
that gives me a depth of something that sometimes it's hard to just pull out of nowhere. Right. Especially like with someone who has an old man, for example, who has lots of wrinkles and is weathered, maybe a fisherman who's spent
Mm,
45 or 50 plus years on the water, and they just you can start to envision this feeling like the old man in the sea, and
mhm.
just that weathered from the sun and everything. There's going to be like it just already in my mind starts to put me in a character mood, a style that I want
Yeah.
to bring about.
Mm.
So that's a visual piece. Now again, that's a longer process, right? Because you have to know these things about the characters, which leads us into making acting decisions, which leads us into you should join VO Journey Academy so that you can learn how to do all of this stuff, because it's a lot of work. Because you're absolutely right asking that question, but this is the process that you have to understand, right? Because you said one thing builds off another.
I'm going to paraphrase a friend of mine
It's a
who has
thought to the
long
bag.
said, no, it is. Look, this is where, right? This is the iceberg that's
Oh,
underneath, right? We're
mhm,
only seeing this much at the top, and this
right,
is the mountain below. But
right.
I've had a friend who has long said there is nothing easy about speaking into a microphone for a living. And
Hmm.
what you just unraveled is yes. I mean, it is a lot. Now, I will say with sometimes what people I think suffer with when they talk about tone, just going back to Michael's original question is that idea of slipping or dropping
Hmm.
is sometimes just energy level.
Mm.
It's just the feeling of I started from a very energized, very enthusiastic place, and the longer I'm in the gray little box and I'm reading and I'm reading and I'm reading and everything, it just
That's a
starts
good
to
point.
kind of
Yes,
decay.
yes.
Um,
I would add, Gabby, too, that I was of course I was going down that route of the characterization, all that stuff. But uh, another side of this would be one thing I found something I sound different in the morning than
sure,
I do in the evening than
we
I
all do.
do at noon. So one surefire method to at least give yourself a good chance, right, is make sure you try to record at the same time every single day to the best of your ability,
Hmm.
because at least you will sound similar than you do recording wild times. Now, sometimes we don't have that luxury,
Right.
but it can be a difference if you're recording in the morning and
Hmm.
then after a full day's work, the kids, your family, you just mowed the lawn and you got to come in and you're like, chapter 13. Joe goes to a party. Right?
Uh, yeah.
He's excited, right? Like you know what I'm talking about. And then in the morning we're
Hmm.
like, Joe goes to a party because you're. I mean, I was not aware. This is real of the fatigue that I experienced, and I think all of us experienced from a full day work of life. It's exhausting, and you don't know it until you start to record at different times and you start to listen back and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like death warmed over on that one. What was wrong with me?
Especially
I thought I was giving everything I had, and you were. You're just fatigued
tired.
and exhausted.
Yeah. Especially when you take into consideration people who also talk for a living or for their day job, right? Because so
Right.
many of the people that come into voiceover, they're teachers, they're educators, they're presenters. You're
Mhm.
talking all day, and then you're going to come home and talk some more?
Yes.
That
Yes.
is hard, hard,
Yep.
hard, hard. I
Yep.
mean, look, not to be gross, but like it reminds me of the old joke about the gynecologist. Like at the end of the day, right? He's like, if I gotta see one more, and there's his wife going, okay. It's sort of that idea. Like, come on.
I mean, it is the reality, and a lot of and if you're not used to this, a lot of people, what they'll do too is you lose your
Mhm.
voice started. I went through a period where especially, and it's another thing, if you're doing voiceovers all day, you're coaching or teaching all
Yeah.
day. I mean, there are days. I'm not kidding. I know I literally talk for like it feels like 6 to 8 hours nonstop. I mean, just talking and talking and teaching and voiceover and education and videos and talking, and then everyone else wants to talk to you, right? Like you said, I mean, after a while, you're like, it just never. You're just talk constantly. Now, over a period of time, you'll build a muscle, and it will not go out on you. But early on, it takes a while, so that fatigue is just real. So,
Super
it's important to, we go back to important to try to get
vocal
sleep.
rest.
It's important to take breaks, take care of your voice, do the things that we all know will take care of ourselves.
And if you don't already know it, vocal rest, no talkie, is
Mm-hmm.
much healthier than whispering. Some people think that if I whisper that I'm conserving my voice. No, you're not. You're actually straining your voice more to whisper. So don't do that.
We have
Um,
some questions here or
Nope.
there or
Love it.
something. John did say, Anthony, I know you recorded courses on the Academy. Which one would be best for narrating e-learning courses?
Hmm.
All right, that's a good one. I think actually, I'm not sure if we generally have a just straight up e-learning course. The cool thing is, though, is what I'd recommend is, with our new kind of corporate VO coach, teacher, right, Melissa,
Mm-hmm.
that in my mind is going to really be encompassing in that, because even though corporate sometimes is different, I think that long form narration in a professional manner, whether it's more salesy or more e-learning, that will be a big one there. But I
Mm-hmm.
like that question. I like that question, and we'll definitely work on putting something out for that, John. Let's see. Tracy says, "Good morning from Rochester, Minnesota. Hello. How about using something to change your voice sound?"
Yeah, I want to know what you mean by that. Tracy,
Yeah.
I'm a little, I need clarify, please, if you would.
Yeah, do you mean like if you mean something from a technical standpoint, maybe that's a good question that we can use for tomorrow is what are some tools that are available in your DAWs for voice modulation,
Mm,
making, speeding up. Now, here's a little thing I've done, and I've only done this to teach, but a powerful tool that you can use to teach yourself whether or not, and we'll kind of finish up with pacing here, is if you feel like you're going too slow or too fast, especially in Adobe Audition. Now you have to
mm.
go to the multi-track, but a multi-track there's a little tab over on the multi-track that allows you to it's a little stopwatch, and it will allow you to stretch your audio or reduce your audio. So in essence, you will speed up your audio or make it go
Oh,
longer. And for just at a teeny bit, it won't seem like you sound different. If you do it if you do it enough, it's gonna sound weird. But the point that's why I use it for education purposes. But sometimes I've used it where someone was so slow, I sped up their audio, sped up them talking a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounded so much better, right? Or they were going so fast that I was like I lengthened a little bit, and it sounded so much better.
Mm.
But that I like to use that as a great learning tool to say, hey, listen, if you listen how it sounds, if we speed up some, it does not sound slow. Like you don't sound bad, and actually, it sounds more engaged if you're speaking a little faster.
So I'll tell you something really funny. In radio, a lot of people do not know this. When you listen to top 40 radio, it doesn't matter what genre, but anything that's like really popular,
Hmm.
um, excuse me, the programming, the music is sped up by 5%. So it's
Mm.
interesting because it helps to keep the tempo up even on songs that are, slower. And it can be really fascinating because sometimes when people hear a song that they're used to hearing on the radio, they realize the tempo's off. They're like, why does it seem
Yeah.
slower? Because it
Yeah.
is. The
Yes.
station is actually making it more lively. Mm-hmm.
That is really interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
we nowadays, right? I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I will often, even if I'm listening to an audiobook, I will use the 1.5 speed boost. YouTube, I will listen to it faster because
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, we got to get going here. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't, it's getting a little too slow. I got things to do, but I want to get the information.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just a part of, I think, moving forward. Doesn't mean there aren't some performances that need to be attention needs to be given, and
Right.
it works, right? Which then goes back to your acting decisions based off of what is the overall vision of the story and how are we bringing that about in our characterization.
Full circle.
Full circle. So there's a bunch of we are at the end
We
of
are.
our.
So I wrote down a lot of
Mm.
notes so Tracy, I wrote down a bunch of things related to your question,
Oh,
sound effects,
synthesizer.
reverb, synthesizers, basically things like that. Anthony, I have a question for you in regard to that about audiobooks, but
Mm.
again, we're going
Hmm.
to explore all this stuff. We can touch on it tomorrow and then maybe
Hmm.
even into next week.
Absolutely. And don't forget, everybody, tomorrow is our open forum Friday, as we always
Yeah.
have. So come, we've got stuff to talk about, but we love lots of questions.
Yeah.
So come with lots of questions, and we will make a.
Your interactions are
Yes.
literally everything in this. It makes what we're
Absolutely.
doing, I don't know. No, I don't want to say worthwhile because it's worthwhile regardless, but it lets us know that we're really talking about the things that you guys want to know instead of just, talking to
Absolutely.
ourselves.
We would never do that.
Never.
Somebody sometime has got to say, just stop talking. See, that's the thing. I'd be like, I can't stop. Well, on that note, you guys have a wonderful Thursday. See you all mañana.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
everybody. Goodbye. Goodbye. See you later. Goodbye.